short story by Navis, which tells the story of Garin's grandfather who died a tragic death by killing himself as a result of hearing a slanderous story from someone he already knew. Was quite captivating to anyone who read it because of the allure. The research tried to study it and so that the study also, especially chapter 6, is easy to understand also. It seems necessary. It also explains the synopsis of the short story, The Collapse of Surau kami. The synopsis is described below. Somewhere there is an old surau. They almost collapsed only because of someone who came there with a sincere heart and permission from the local community. The surau is still standing. The person who cares for and takes care of him. Later, this person was called Garin. Also, this person can live because of the alms of others. But there is the most important thing that make him survive. Namely, he is still willing to work as a knife sharpener. From this job, he can earn a fortune, whether it be in the form of money, food, cake, or cigarette. Beginning part. At the beginning of the story contained in this short story is divided into two parts, namely the exposition and section, which explain or inform the information needed in the understand the story. Or in this case, the exposition of the story in the short story is the forum of explanation of the existence of grandfather who became a garim in Old Surau several years ago, as revealed in the following data. Like, if a few years ago master come to my hometown, you will meet an old man who usually sit in the surau with all his old behavior and then obedience to worship. He had been the garim the surau guard for many years, and then people call him grandpa, as surau guard grandfather did not get anything, and then he live on the alm he collect once every Friday, and then also once every 6 months he gets a quarter of the process from uploading goldfish from the pond, and once years people use are in the future of it, but garim is not very well known. The next is middle part. Well, out of the instability in the story give rise to a development of the story. But the middle part does not start from the instability. Instead, the middle section begins with the answer to the question that arise, as mentioned in the earlier section. Well, the answer at least describe a conflict that the grandfather died because of tal that cannot be died. The data for this as an all follow. And the culprit of this carelessness is undeniably true story. This conflict data is strengthened by the appearance of plot character who intend to buy grandpa. However, once the character are meeting grandpa, the atmosphere is very unexpected. Grandpa is so gloomy, a tribe angel. He sat with his knees up to super his hand and chin, his gaze glanced forward as if something was ringing in his mind. A milk black filled with coconut oil and fine grain, leather long sole, and old razor strand around Grandpa's feet. Apparently, Grandpa is being gripped by conflict, and then this conflict developed into complication when my character asks Grandpa something in the form of a knife. The cause of this complication is not because of the knife, but the choice of knife. This is evidence when the old man mentioned the name of the owner of the knife. He is so furious that he even threatens like this. He's insolent, Grandpa answered. Why? Hopefully this razor sharpened so sharply slit his throat. Like that, his anger was so great that's why just wanted to realize his annoying by telling what Ajosidi had done to him in front of my character. Well, he told the story because of the urge from within, so strong and great, and he himself could not help but hit why Ajosidi had told him. However, everything he said in front of my character did not make him feel like it might even get fever and praise on his chest and mind. As a result, the climax of the grandfather's disappointed ended in tragic way. Well, the next is final part. The last part of the story turned out to be interesting. Why I say interesting? Because interesting of the surprise. The surprise lies in solving the problems, namely when people were surprised to find that Grandpa Garen's died in a tragic way. Ajosidi actually thought it was normal, and he even tried to buy a shirt even though he ordered this of his wife. And And then the following data illustrate this point. I'm looking for Ajosidi to his house, but I only met his wife. Then I asked him, he's gone, reply Ajosidi wives. Didn't he know grandpa died already? And he left a message to buy a shirt from Garfield 7 layers. And now, I actually lose my mind really hearing all the even by Ajosidi's side action, who were not the least bit responsible. And now, where is he? Work? Work? My question repeat empathy. Yes, he went to work. This surprising solution seemed to leave a question. Is it true that Ajosidi is a responsible person? Or is not Ajosidi's behavior trying to get his wife to buy the shirt a form of responsibility? Then where did it go wrong? If the plot structure is above the plot of the story is broken into regressive also, plot or flashback plot, it is sad so because it's really realized on the previous story, which my character tells the story a few years ago. You come to my hometown by bus, and at the end of the road you will meet an old Surau, and in the left courtyard at this row you will meet old man. People call him grandpa, but this old man is gone on, and then he's died. And the road cause of this collapse is tell that cannot be died. This is the story. And then the next day when I was about to leave the house early in the morning, my wife said I didn't go to visit. Who died? I asked, surprised. Grandpa. Grandpa? Like that.
I'm ARWINI from English Literature 8th class. So now I'm gonna explain the background. First is the background of the places. The background of the places on the short story is clearly referred to by its author, such as the city near the market, in Surau, and so forth. Second background is time background. This type of background found in the short story is similar to that of the place, such as it's described above in the other place or example, such as the following. Once upon a time, stayed Ajosidi at the beginning. And then, in the afterlife of the Lord God, some nice people who have retreated. Still, there are those who are different about time, such as, if you come now, you will come across only an impressive picture of hatred that will topple. Once a day, I came and hired my grandfather. Since I was young, I was here, wasn't it? The third is social background. Within this setting generally represents the social condition, social groups and attitudes, habits, manner of life, and language. Inside this pen, the social background is described as follows. And in that left-hand court, would you meet an old man who used to sit there with all his antics and his obedience to worship. He has been the guardian, the keeper of the Surau. People call him Grandpa. From this example appears the social background based on age, occupation, and learning or way of life. However, the social background example that describes other custom that God would admit to lust have a shrill voice within the multitude. And now we're gonna talk about majority. First, if you come now, you will come across only an impressive picture of hatred that will topple. Second, and in that left-hand court, would you meet an old man who used to sit there with all his antics and his obedience to worship. He has been the guard, the keeper of the Surau. People call him Grandpa.
My name is KHADIJAH and I am from class A English Literature. So there are several characterization in this short story, namely the first is the character of me. This character is very instrumental in this short story. From his mouth, we can hear the story of the grandfather who killed himself by slitting his throat with a knife. The author described this character as someone who wants to know other people's things. The second is the character of Ajosidi. This character is very special. Not much is raised, but it really defines the continuity of this story. This character is clearly referred to as the bird. This mention appears through the mouth of the character me. The short story The Collapse of Our Surau also uses several figurative language, namely the first is simile. Simile is an expression by using an explicit comparison which is expressed by a preposition or a conjunction. One of the comparative figurative language found in the short story The Collapse of Our Surau is simile, which comes from the sentence, his whole life seems to be dimming like a sparkling light. The second is metaphor. Metaphor expresses something directly in the form of an analogical comparison. The style of language in the short story The Collapse of Our Surau can be seen in one sentence. For example, in the sentence, while his lips lined a smile and his eyes shone a brilliant light. The figure of speech contains the meaning of a person's happiness for something that happens to him. Through the sentence above, it means that there is a happiness that is waiting for him. The last is hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figurative language that exaggerates an event. In one part, it contains a sentence using hyperbole as a style of language in the short story The Collapse of Our Surau as follows. The fire of hell suddenly breathed its warmth into Haji's solid body. The hyperbole in the quote is the word of hell fire.